They say the old adage is good teams win and great teams cover. I think that's a fallacy. I think that's a farce. I don't think that's reality. I think the reality is that there are people who have a very vested interest in keeping 2 and only 2 conferences in playoff contention. I'm going to talk about the U. Let's believe that. But I got to identify this first. Let's take it to the top 25 poll. As you can see in this top 25 poll, let me see if I can zoom this in. The top 7, which is filled essentially with Big Ten and SEC teams, unchanged. Ohio State was idle. Oh no, Ole Miss moved up. We'll talk about that in a second. Ohio State was idle. Indiana did what they needed to against the team that they faced. I don't remember what team it was. It doesn't matter. They won by like 50. Texas A&M went into Baton Rouge and did something that a lot of people have struggled to do, which is win in Baton Rouge at night. They remain undefeated. Alabama, in a barn burner, and almost lost to an unranked South Carolina team, gets the benefit of the doubt. They don't move. Georgia was idle. Oregon, a very uncharacteristic, and against a very bad Wisconsin team, wins 21-7. Don't move. Ole Miss pulls away in the final frame after being down, I think, 13. They move up a spot. Georgia Tech, undefeated. Dog walks on homecoming. Syracuse, move down a spot. I like to identify once again, this is a undefeated. Now granted, their resume, pay attention here, their resume does not speak to them. Why? Because according to these bozo AP poll writers, they are in a not good conference. Understood, got it, let's press. Vanderbilt went 17-10 against an unranked Missouri team, the Missouri Tigers. Wins by 7 points on the road, had to figure out a bunch of stuff. Apparently now that Missouri team, according to ESPN and all these other bozos who have scammed America into giving them jobs, apparently now Missouri is a good team. Just so we're clear. Okay. Miami, after a 42-7 drubbing, and when I say drubbing, I'm talking about after taking a 7-zip lead, Stanford, who is not a good team, and who is also unranked, did not score another point again. Miami scored 42 unanswered points. You just gave Texas A&M the benefit of the doubt for doing that on the road at night. Miami, who you all touted and said that they had the greatest non-conference schedule at the beginning, last month, the beginning of through the first 4 games of the month, greatest schedule. Suddenly, that schedule is not good enough because they're now losing spots despite winning. Georgia Tech undefeated, losing spots despite winning. So which one is it? Because you argued, media members, when you were sucking off the U, when ESPN is getting all these ratings draws, and go check the stats, we pull ratings despite being essentially inconsistent, irrelevant in some people's words, not mine, for the past 2.5 decades. Somehow, Miami is one of your biggest rating draws. Hence why we can't seem to play a game at our natural vantage point, which is high noon, in the middle of the Miami Heat. But you have decided that despite us being your primetime draw week in, week out, at the time I'm recording this, I don't think SMU in Miami has a time yet. That's by design. The other schools do, but Miami SMU doesn't. I wonder why. I'll check again. Maybe they changed it, but I really wonder why. And it was probably benefiting off of SMU beating Wake Forest. And staying the present, was Miami going to be the first one to handle their first regular season loss? That obviously will not be the case anymore. Miami's one loss is against, wait a second, there's 2 number 10s. Well, I guess BYU is 11. You got the same amount of votes. Miami lost to your now number 16 team, who moved up 3 spots after beating unranked and struggling basically to the last quarter. They won by 14, but the game didn't look like that. Unranked Louisville, 6-1. Their one loss was against a team ahead of them. One loss Virginia, who moved up a spot. But somehow, your logic said, hey, Vanderbilt, who won by 7 on the road against a conference opponent who was unranked, that gives them precedent to jump a Miami team that won by 35 points. That you said, not me, you right there, y'all said had the best resume in college, who have argued to this point. USF is now ranked because those bozos blew it. That's what I get for rooting on them. Like, absolutely blew it. Like Alex Gosh, whatever the hell his name is, he deserves, or Alex Golish, that's his name. He deserves all the blame for that. He had a chance to go up, kick a field goal, and that's essentially what they lost by. They had that team down 17 in the 4th quarter and blew it, with arguably one of the more dynamic quarterbacks in the group of 5. I ain't gonna say in the country, in the group of 5. Alex Golish, you deserve everything that happened to you. I don't feel bad, and you deserve whatever comes your way. But if I'm being honest with you, that dude's probably already gotten an offer to a G5. I can see Florida definitely making that reach. I can definitely see Florida making that reach. I'm not in the Florida sphere. I don't care about Florida, but I can see it. It makes sense. He's already in the state. That's a simple drive, a couple hours. What is that? 2.5, 3 hours north. He's already worked the SEC. It makes sense. And with the way that Ole Miss won and their success, and Lane Kiffin just signed a pretty sure extension in this past offseason when Florida was about to come open last season and Alabama came open, I can definitely see him staying at Ole Miss. So unless Alex Golish, the team didn't play like they lost him, but unless Alex Golish lost that team because he's getting ready to be the next head coach at Florida, you deserve all the L's that you took. But I digress. Notre Dame, who I'm pretty sure was idle. They are 5-2, number 12. Texas Tech 7-1, Tennessee seemingly can't do no wrong despite losing the way they have. They've stayed roughly in this range the entire time. Virginia can't seem to jump them. Louisville won't jump them. Cincinnati's been fantastic in the Big 12. Oklahoma lost. That's who Ole Miss beat. Oklahoma. In Oklahoma. And they only dropped 5 spots. Miami lost by 3 points and dropped 7. Yes, the team was unranked. I understand. But it was also a one-loss team who lost in overtime the week before. And should probably have been ranked before a lot of these teams. Oh, Missouri is ranked. I stand corrected. Missouri is ranked. I didn't scroll that far down. But they lost by 7 points and dropped 4 spots. So suddenly Missouri's good. Texas. Monumental comeback. But you shouldn't have been in that position in the first place against unranked Mississippi State on the road. When your roster, top to bottom, is better in every conceivable aspect. And then so on and so forth. I'm not going to get into the rest of this, but I say all that to say we have a very serious issue going on here. Because I think we're now in a space where we are giving the benefit of the doubt to certain conferences and certain teams and not to everybody else. And even when I thought, okay, well, this team plays in this conference, so naturally that makes sense. I'm starting to realize, like, no, that's not really the issue here. It's not even ratings. I used to think it's ratings. It's not even that, if I'm being completely fair. It's just straight up bias. That's what it is. This is why I've always been a component of the BCS. This is why you can't have human aspect and people who can be swayed and coerced with money to bureaucratically come up with a process to pick the best teams to play for a national championship. It just doesn't work. There's too many things in the way that will continue to keep them. We have people on the football committee who are politicians, career politicians. Condoleezza Rice at one point was on that committee. And you're trying to get me to understand that she should be the know-all, be-all, or the deciding factor for the national championship? Are we actually for real right now? I will go another 20 minutes. I'll carry on with that. I'm not going to make this much longer. Let's get into it. 42-7, your Miami Hurricanes versus the Stanford Cardinals. I'll be quite frank with you. I wasn't very crazy about how this game went. That first drive on offense and the first drive on defense, I was calling for coordinators' heads. I really was. Excuse my algorithm. They know I was looking around for some stuff. DJ equipment, if you know, you know. Obviously, you know you here. Carson Beck in what some will call an efficient 21-28, 189. I've had a lot of dialogue, man, and I know I didn't post for the Louisville game because I was going to get very toxic. I put my eggs in a basket, but for those who know me from another platform I was on, you will understand that for a very long time, I was the guy who I do not like, I cannot stand Heisman odds, bowl game projections, play of the year projections or predictions. Anything that predicts something forward, especially early in the season, it makes me visibly like it makes me, I want to get physical in a bad way. No Diddy. Like it makes me want to fight people. I think it's the stupidest thing, and I think no matter how much of the pre-game, post-game, in the week conferences you have, that shit seeps in locker rooms and people start operating off of such. If you think I'm lying, go look at Cam when the odds started coming in. They did it 1 week, then he had a bad game, and then it skipped him a week, and then he had a bounce back game, and then they came back and he had another bad game. Go check out, I want to say Louisville, and go check out Florida State, and look how he played. One of those games he had multiple turnovers. One of those games he didn't throw a touchdown. He had to catch a touchdown. That's what I mean. If I'm not mistaken, I'm not looking at the schedule, but in between that was what's it, the Cal game? It might have been. Bottom line is the Cal game is which in any other circumstance, in any other conference, especially the SEC, all these conferences, if he did what he did in the Cal game, that would have solidified him as at least top 2 in New York. But I digress. The week of the Louisville game, what did I start hearing all over these talking head bozos on goddamn YouTube and all these other platforms? Heisman odds. Carson Beck is #1 in Heisman odds after a 4-touchdown performance against Florida State, which clearly ain't saying much. Because the Stanford Cardinals, who just slapped by 35, beat that team last week. Goldbranson figured it out. He was phenomenal against them. But all of a sudden, you want me to start listening to Heisman odds. I can't stand it. I know fans like to do that as fanatics, and to each their own. But it is not indicative, of anything that's going to go on for the rest of the season. It means nothing, if we're being completely honest. Telling me who our Heisman favorite is in week 7 is like telling me to go Christmas shopping in July. Now you can do it, and you may have some, but what if you get to a point where you could find that for a significant cheaper amount, I don't know, during day after Christmas, or day after Thanksgiving, excuse me. I don't refer to it as the other reason for, if you know, you know. Or you find a good sale a couple weeks out, a couple days out. When the event is on the doorstep is when it makes sense. When you're at the precipice, when you're at the cusp of what's going to happen, that's when it makes sense. Outside of that, I do not care. It makes no sense to me. Emory Williams got some play. We got a lot of our backups, some runs. Play of the game by far. Let's get out the way. Mark Fletcher. He gets played by the game by default because Mario has chosen to be stubborn to a fault. Now, did that win this game? Yes. Will it win other games? I don't foresee it. Carson Beck, you made him a game manager? Cool. Anybody who knows me, who talked to me before the season, once we got Carson Beck, they know and understand. I was not particularly high on him. I respect his record as a starting quarterback in college football. However, I also used to point out our last DC, Lance Guidry. I used to point out how he made notable improvement year over year for the time he was here. And fans used to destroy me about that. Even though we didn't have any of the people in place, even though y'all have heard me openly criticize guys like, I don't remember that kid's name. That's how much I want to get him away from my head. The kid who ended up replacing Cameron Kitchens. That guy who don't get no PT at Georgia. But at least he could say he's back home. I talked about how he was the #1 factor behind how bad that secondary looked. Him, by himself. The corners didn't help either. But when I would bring that up, fans would drag me, right? So I was very careful about how I talk about Beck. But I can go ahead and say it. Either that individual, either he is not fully healthy, he has regressed in his recovery process, or he was never good to begin with. Now, you don't go 30-3 in college football, well now 30-4, if you're just cheeks, right? Like, there has to be some semblance of production. I get that. However, even his performance yesterday, as bad as those uniforms were, and I'm a military member, so if I'm saying those uniforms were bad as a member of the military for over a decade and a half, if Carson Beck and Emory Williams switched jerseys yesterday, outside the fact that those jerseys were absolutely ineligible to read, I wouldn't have known the difference. It feels like, and this is what it feels like from a distance. I'm not in the locker room, but it feels like to me that when you come out after a loss where you throw 4 picks, nobody else, and you blame other people that you've lost the people you're supposed to throw to at a minimum. Because all I saw was a bunch of checkdowns, a bunch of easy passes in the middle, a bunch of stuff to the perimeter, and that all looked just like what I'm accustomed to seeing from Emory Williams. The easy, safe, let's dial it back, let's depend on our run game, because I didn't trust him as a quarterback. This looks like Clemson versus Miami, Florida State versus Miami 2 seasons ago. Someone show me different. But casuals will say, hey, we won the game. What are you mad about? Okay, it's a bigger issue when we get to teams who actually have a pulse and do like Louisville and say, hey, we're not going to let you run. And you're about 40 yards shorter. 150 yards shorter. 130 yards shorter than you were last night. Luckily, spread the word, but a lot of these guys, Chris Wheatley Humphrey started getting some tick. I like to see that. Start getting them guys some reps. Jordan Lyles had a spurt. I'm not going to say he snapped out of it. You do that against a team with some real speed on the edge in SMU, and I'll say you snapped out of it. Mark Fletcher is not going to break a 50-yard run anymore. I just don't see it. I think he just put on too much muscle from 2 seasons ago to be able to effectively do that, right? I just don't see that happening. That's what Jordan Lyles is supposed to help break up the monotony. That's what Hellcat is supposed to come break up the monotony. But it just doesn't seem like we're very interested on getting everything to the perimeter. So we got to take what comes with it, right? Fast forward to the receiving core. Tony Johnson is our 3rd wide receiver. And you can feel however you want to about it, but JoJo didn't have a single catch and got snaps. We saw it. Matter of fact, it was to the point that when JoJo got on the field, I would actually stand up. First couple weeks of the season, I didn't realize that him and Keelan Marion had swapped numbers and that he actually became 1, which Mara has said in the past is a big deal. They don't give 1 to anybody. They made a huge deal about him getting 1. Cam Ward. They made a huge deal about Kiko Manoa getting 1. They didn't so much this year for Muhammad Torrey or JoJo Trader. However, they made it a big deal. They said everybody can't get 1. So I would stand up and like physically stand in front of my TV when I see one. I don't think he even got looked at. I'm not even talking about targets. I'm talking about like as the ball snap, I'm not even looking in your direction. You're not even part of my read. That's what I'm talking about. So I don't know what's happened internally, but it's obviously with little trust that Carson Beck has already developed or possibly had taken away. It damn sure wants it with him, with JoJo Trader. With Tony Johnson, I think he had 2 explosives yesterday. He had a longer 32, 3 catches, 69 yards. Easily changed the trajectory of play calling and getting the ball downfield. Keelan Marion, I appreciate you, and I understand the story and how it might look a certain way. I saw your storm session. I know what you went through BYU, but maybe later on, if we do get to a playoff run, deep ACC run, you can come back in. But I just saw more from Tony Johnson. I just saw more from Josh Moore. Malley's going to be Malley, right? I'm not even concerned about him. And CJ is going to correct himself. He only had 3 catches for 8 yards, which is wildly uncharacteristic from what I've seen. However, he got in that end zone. He got to that end zone. Fast forward to tight ends. We were lied to about Elijah Lofton. And it pains me to say that because I've been one of his staunchest defenders. That what he brings to the game is different. But every time I see him trying to move for some sort of line of game, he never makes it. End zone, first down. If he's thrown into it, like if they throw the ball past the line, what he can catch and can make some. There's flashes there for sure, but he does not space the floor in a way that's going to be conducive to helping the offense move, to help settle Carson Beck. I didn't say this part earlier, but Carson Beck, in my opinion, clearly had an issue with his confidence, with his decision making, and better teams are going to figure out how to make. Better teams are going to figure out how to make him beat them. And if that's the case, I don't feel great about it. And I will argue from a consistency standpoint, this year's receiving core for him is far better than last year. And I don't think it's even necessarily close. I don't know where we go to in that room. I saw some guys do some more, but I'm really concerned. I don't know if Bauman's the guy or what. But defense, once again, I need to point this out. There are a lot of guys who I think are in a position to be defensive MVP, but I would say by far the most consistent individual on that defense is Keontae Scott. He was an absolute steal in the transfer portal. Week in and week out, he's at least top 3 in tackles. He covers. He doesn't get beat very often. Matter of fact, I don't think there has been a slot who has consistently beat him from time to time. I don't. He is what it's supposed to look like at the slot corner. I don't know what his eligibility looks like, but he definitely has opportunity to get drafted if he chose to declare. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Jacoby Thomas, once again, very solid game. I just want to look at Keontae Scott's stats real fast. Yeah, he's already on pace to beat his 2023 record of 42 tackles in the season. I think he was at Auburn there. And he's only 11 off from 2022, so he's already at 34 total tackle, 22 solo, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery. Hasn't got a pick yet, Got close in that Notre Dame game, but it's coming. It's coming. Pause. Um, Jacoby solid again, all over the place. I will say this. We need to start having an honest conversation about some of the schemes. We run a lot of zone schemes where the slot is seemingly uncovered. Who should always be more of a gadget player in your offense? The first and only touchdown, I saw that shit from a mile away. If I ever look at a football game, that's one of the first things I'm looking at. Where is your slot corner? Especially after last week. Because if you understand last week what happened, they didn't put Chris Bell on the outside. Actually, yes, they did. They did put Chris Bell on the outside. But they ran him underneath in a lot of zone beaters and schemes because they would motion him into where the slot would be, and then run a lot of underneath drags that basically would turn upfield. So basically like a drag and go. They motion him, snap the ball, he run underneath, and he turned it upfield, and then the guy would just dump it off. Both of the touchdowns he scored were like that. Then he's a big receiver, so we got basically smaller receivers in space who couldn't finish the tackle. Smaller defensive backs in space who couldn't finish the tackle. Walk in. There's no linebackers. He would basically eliminate the linebackers with the motion. All he had to do was hold on for a little bit. Ruben Bain, like every week, is getting held egregiously and is never called. I want to point something out. Ruben Bain had one tackle yesterday. Does that make any sense to you? But I guarantee this man had so many pressures, it's not even funny. I heard somebody else say it, and I'm going to steal the idea. He may need to start selling those holds because it's getting ridiculous. He's not going to beat people with raw brute strength because they're going to send help. But teams have figured out, primarily Louisville, just run away from him, run the opposite direction. That's what I think ultimately got I can't remember my man's name, but he was out yesterday. That's what got him hurt because they just kept running and throwing pressure at him. They would move linemen, chip linemen, a lot of pulling guards, pulling tackles to help wash out Bain, and then patience behind them, and then the dude would just get upfield. Wash the linebackers out, wash the defensive linemen out. Now I just got DBs to beat to the edge. And every other team understands that. Stanford started doing that, and then they just stopped. What's the guy's name? Cole Tab. Yeah, 1964. Most of that came on that first drive. Because he just figured out, hey, if I just pull a guard, get them to wash Bain out, and then I'm just patient, I could break. Better teams will start figuring out how to get to the perimeter if you don't figure out how to stop it and quickly. And yes, it may not work because, ultimately it's not going north and south, it's going east and west. But eventually the east and west start transferring into north and south from better teams because you're not getting the calls. We don't get the calls. Holds happen every play. We don't ever get the calls for it. We have 5 for 40. What was the penalties? 5 for 30. They had 2 for 10. We're losing that every week, and it seems like when we get momentum is when these things seemingly come. It's got to stop. It has to. We have to get to a point where we're starting to assert our will on teams and playing smart football. What else? Xavier Lucas. Shout out to Xavier Lucas. I want to look it up, but I thought it was going to take too long. But I think, it was Frederic. I was going to ask, when's the last time a corner got a interception? Because it feels like corners in both Guidry and both Guidry and Heatherman's defense cannot get interceptions for some reason. Safeties and linebackers do. Well, them corners don't. Which is interesting because they play good very often, but shout out to Xavier Lucas. He's starting to show he's exactly what we thought he was. Finished yesterday with 3 total tackles, 2 solos, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, a pass deflection and an interception. Just doing a great job on that perimeter. I was punching the air, frustrated against Louisville. I don't know why he didn't get the primary of the coverage on Bell last week. I would have liked to see Frederic guarding Lacey and Bell being guarded by Lucas. I felt like those matchups just made more sense. I'm not a coordinator and I don't get paid a lot of money to do this, but I just felt like that was pretty much common sense. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But Chris Bell and Xavier Lucas seem like a more logical matchup than Frederic versus Bell. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just being honest. Defensive lineman, man. Them young guys stepped up. Armando Blunt got a sack, got a tackle for loss. Deontay Simpson. Herbert Scroggins got some snaps. Didn't make too much of a thing, but he helped. But Deontay Simpson got in there, made some plays. It was good to see those young guys get plays. It really was. It was good to see them get plays. David Blay, I think it's been 2 weeks in a row now. He's made some boneheaded plays at the line. Just not paying attention, not playing ball. He's the elder statesman of the room for the DTs, and just watching him make some of these plays it's kind of baffling to me, quite honestly. As we move into SMU, we need to definitely get some more reps for these young guys. Not even score. I just think switching it up. I think this game went the way it was because a lot more guys got opportunities to get in the game. Guys like Georgia Trey didn't necessarily get targeted, but you can tell that it was like, hey, we need to find a true 3. If you had a gun in my head today, to me, it's Tony Johnson. Tony Johnson has been just about as long as college. Is pretty much, what's buddy's name? Keelan Marion. That's like Keontae's guy. I mean Keelan Marion. And just been more productive. He was more productive against USF. He had a really good catch. Keelan Marion had one as well. But yesterday, you can tell they didn't plan for him. I think that was supposed to be the beauty of the depth, is that guys will get opportunities. Now, granted, our quarterback wants guys that he has chemistry with because that helps. But in theory, you want to get as much chemistry with all your guys, which is where I have an issue with Beck. Granted, Beck was hurt during the offseason. Got it. He was on campus for quite a few months and could not throw the ball. Got it. If you had the control of your locker room the way Cam Ward did, you bring those guys out to get routes on air. All of them. You get up a night that you meet, and you bring them out there to get routes on air. And you know why? Because when you don't do that, what happened at Louisville happens. You don't get guys to get the right depth. You don't have understand that guys know the right play, that guys know, and all your passes are short underneath because guys may not be getting the same depth. It could be your arm, which I think it is, but guys aren't getting the same depth. They're not getting to the places that you need the ball to be. And you end up, putting yourself in a position where, hey, what I was trying to get after, not working. But shout out to Wesley Saint. Linebackers were swarming last night. Shout out to Wesley. Had a great play. I thought the guy was going to break it up, but Wesley kind of pretty much scooped it off the ground. Damn near. Got a good return. I feel like he should have returned it. That's just me, though. Um, and yeah, put the offensive position to run that score up. Now, I didn't touch on him too much, and I'm going to say the last part of this video to talk about him. I'm not going to use something grandiose like say he's the best player in college football. That is ridiculous. It truly is. He is the most dynamic player. Let me say this. He is the most dynamic freshman in the country this year. That's what I'll keep it to. Malachi Tony is the most dynamic freshman in college football this year. Barring injury. You know what? I'm not going to do that because I said I hate it and I'm not going to do it. He's on trajectory, on track to pick up some ACC level accolades towards the end of the year. He is possibly on track to break the true freshman receiving record, and I believe that's 936 yards. Set by Diamon Richards. He currently sits at 562. His worst game was arguably against one of the best secondaries they had, and he had 4 for 40. Had a career high against Louisville, which is crazy to think about. And he's just trending. He's trending in the right way. Shout out to Malachi Tony. It is going to cost us a significant amount of money to keep him at the University of Miami because some SEC Big Ten team is going to come calling. I promise you. You pay him whatever it takes. Now, I say all that to say, we have to start opening up our palette, if you will. I don't know if we're just trying to hide what we put on film, but it's no secret we're running duo as a run scheme. And yesterday was successful. Once again, SMU has a lot of jaded former Miami Hurricane players. They came in on a pallet. Year one did something Miami has also done in only a single time in 21 years. And that's get to the ACC championship. Ironically, also versus Clemson. There is an opportunity to get here. We just gotta do what we gotta do. If we half-ass this process, we have nobody to blame except ourselves. As of today, it's just scheduling because we actually played a legitimate outside conference schedule. But we have an opportunity. We are currently behind Louisville, SMU, and Duke. We lost the head-to-head of Louisville, so now we need help. If you don't play Duke, you got to beat SMU. SMU is going to be absolutely turned up for this game. They're already pissed. If you're looking at the script is the exact same thing as what happened against Louisville. Louisville lost a late game that would have put them basically in the passenger seat, not the driver's seat, but the passenger seat of the car to the ACC championship. They lost in overtime. We got help there. We still need more help. SMU somehow uncharacteristically decides to lose to Wake Forest, of all people, for their first ever regular season ACC loss. I don't understand it, but that's how this conference. This is why I can't stand this conference. It really is, because as poor as they played yesterday, they will come out next week, and I keep saying this. Same thing with Miller Moss. Miller Moss was terrible yesterday, but against us, he figures it out. I don't understand it. Pitt, who was 4-1, body slammed somebody through the paint. They allowed 35 points too, but they scored damn near 60. Virginia is just quietly skating by. They keep figuring it out. Do I think they're going to slip? Absolutely. You can't keep winning games in overtime. But hey, that's a testament to the culture that their head coach is building there. Shout out to him. Seriously, shout out to him. That school, fuck that school with everything in my spirit. I will never forget that Tiki Torch shit. I will never forget what Charlottesville did. That you will not, y'all know. If you know, you know. Fuck that school. Fuck Louisville too. For that Breonna Taylor shit, I will never get over that shit. That shit don't slip from my memory. However, keeping it just sports. I appreciate what he's doing. I know that school's been through some stuff. The loss of a couple of teammates a couple of years ago. They were getting ready to cancel football and they bounced through it and they're figuring it out. And I can appreciate that. If we just keep it in football. But I think there's a room for them to slip. I think it will happen. But I can't worry about that. I got to worry about the Southern Methodist University Mustangs. We're going to Dallas next week, and we have to play a team that, just like Louisville, is going to be pissed because they just lost to a team that they're probably better than on paper. We see how that went for us. Against a head coach who is offensive minded. We're all aware of what Rhett Lashley was because he was our OC. The margin for error is not there. So if you need to figure out and quickly, it's clear that they can be stopped. They held them to what, 12 points total? They can be stopped. They're not as high flying explosive as we want to think. However, what are you going to do on the offensive side of the ball? What are you going to do if they stack the box and you can't just run the ball down their throat like we did yesterday evening? Those are the questions we got to start asking. Let's see if they announce the time for this shit. Because if they don't, it's going to get very dark. And we will find another game and we will be out of the conversation. And best believe, they finally give us a game at high noon. 12 p.m. Probably lost some luster. But once again, they are unranked. They are looking to prove something. They want to be a top 10 team. Just like Louisville want to be the top 3 team in America. You better figure it out. This is the season. It's right here. If you don't figure this out and you lose, it's done. There's no playoff. There's no nothing. And like I started this video with, it's clear the resume is not going to help you. USF is now a wash. Notre Dame was good. Florida was never a good win. And Florida State is an L. So you basically have one quality win in your resume now and one quality loss. Figure it out, man. I don't know what else to say. Figure it out. But appreciate y'all rocking with me, man. Appreciate y'all looking at the vid. Yeah, I got a lot of stuff going on. I moved houses. I got all kinds of stuff going on. So I'll post when I can. but I appreciate the support nonetheless. Appreciate all the subscribers. The real ones know. The real ones know. We ain't on no funny shit on this side. I do what I can when I can for y'all, man, because I love this you as much as y'all do. And that's pretty much the gist of it, man. But appreciate y'all, man. We about this thing. And if you're ever wondering, man, like if we down bad or if we, not making it to where we just understand, man. We good.